Hey everybody, welcome to the first dual credit video lecture. In this video, we're going to be covering chapters 1.2 through 1.5 in the OpenStax Anatomy and Physiology textbook created by Rice University. So if you need to reference anything that's covered in this video, those are the sections that you need to go back and look at and read. So this video is going to be a review of biological topics from biology that hopefully you remember. For this class, there's going to be 8 levels of organization that we're going to take a look at. You may remember these from biology: the atom, which is a single element of matter. So these are going to be things on your periodic table of elements, things like calcium and hydrogen. Molecules, where 2 or more atoms are bonded together. So this is going to be like your water or your carbon dioxide. Organelles, which are the mini organs found within cells, things like mitochondria. The cell, which is the smallest unit of life. We'll spend a lot of time talking about cells. Tissues, which are a group of cells that are all going to work together towards a common function, such as nervous tissue, or going to be groups of cells that are all working to propagate signals, carry out effects, and things like that. Organs, which are going to be a group of tissues that have one or more functions, things like the heart. An organ system, a group of organs that are all going to be performing a major function, something like the muscular system. And then lastly, a single individual, an organism. So these are the 8 levels of organization that we're going to deal with. Yes, there are more beyond the organism that we took a look at in biology, but for this class, we're going to be looking at those 8. Here you can see them broken down from the smallest, your atomic level, the chemical level here, molecular, cellular, tissue, organ system, and then organismal level. There's 5 characteristics of life that we're going to take a look at. With this class, you're going to see that life is organized, and we already talked about that with the levels of organization. Living things have a metabolism, and that's going to be the sum of all anabolic and all catabolic processes within the organism. So anabolism is going to be taking small molecules and putting them together. You're going to be building a larger molecule, and in order to build a larger molecule, that's going to require you to spend energy. The opposite of that is going to be catabolism, where large molecules are going to be broken down into smaller parts, and when you do that, that is going to release energy. So again, metabolism is the sum of all anabolic and all catabolic processes. How much energy are you spending, and how much energy are you gaining from the release of those catabolic processes? In the body, energy is measured in terms of adenosine triphosphate, or ATP. A third characteristic of life is that you are going to respond to stimuli, both inside and out, and you are going to move. So you're going to be moving materials around and within you. Some people actually will take this a step further. They'll argue that you have to actually be able to move from one place to another, in which case plants really don't meet this characteristic of life. And the 5th one is that you are going to grow and develop, and along with development, you are going to reproduce more of you. So that's going to be with growth, you're increasing your body size, and how you do that typically is you go through mitosis and increase the number of cells that you have. Development is going to refer to your maturation. You're getting older, and your cells are maturing. And usually that's going to take place with cells differentiating. Basically what that means is those cells are going to be becoming a lot more specialized. So when you first start, you are very, very generic cells, because you think that one cell that you start with needs to be able to give rise to all other types of cells that you have in your body. And so you have to be very generic, but as you get older, you want them to be more specific so that they can do their job better. And then with reproduction, you're going to increase the number of your species, and humans, we use sexual reproduction to do that. So here you can see kind of a picture of metabolism. Food comes in, it is broken down through catabolic processes. You might remember, or hopefully you remember, cellular respiration or internal respiration from biology. And then you're going to take those broken down molecules and the energy that you gain from that, and you're going to spend the energy to build them into molecules that are useful for you. Some requirements for life. There are 4 things we're going to look at. Oxygen, obviously, is very critical. Going back to cellular respiration, you need oxygen to carry it out efficiently and generate adenosine triphosphate. You need nutrients, things like water, your macromolecules, and your micronutrients. And you need a very specific range of temperatures. So in the body, you need to be around 37 degrees Celsius. As an internal temperature, you can't get too much colder or too much warmer, otherwise things don't work. Things like, especially if you get too warm, the proteins in your body start to unravel, and so you pretty much quite literally start melting if your body gets too hot. You also need a very specific range of atmospheric pressures. So you really don't think about this. You have like 15 pounds of air directly above you at all times, unless you're on top of a mountain or something like that. But you need that specific range of air pressure on top of you to ensure that gas exchange is taking place properly, or sometimes more importantly, is not taking place. So one example of this, you might have heard of divers who get the bends. What happens is divers who get the bends, when they are coming up to the surface, they come up too quickly and they don't regulate the pressure within their suit. As a result, the nitrogen in their blood will actually bubble out and cause some issues there. Actually, even could potentially cause death because of those bubbles in the bloodstream. Another thing we'll talk about is homeostasis. We talked about this a lot in biology. Everybody has a set point or a normal range that you need to stay at. So like we said, with that range of temperatures, your body needs to stay around 37 degrees Celsius. A negative feedback system is going to be responsible for returning your body back towards that set point. So if you get too hot or you get too cold, you have a negative feedback system that's going to return you back to that 37 degrees Celsius. A sensor is going to monitor your current level. It's going to say, hey, this is the current temperature we're at, or this is the current level we're at, and it's going to carry that information to the control center. The control center will say, okay, you're at this level, and this is what you need to be at, and if those are different, it's going to activate an effector, and that effector is going to carry out a change that's going to return your body back to the set point. So an easy version of this is with body temperature, you get too hot or too cold. So if your body senses that you are too hot, it's going to carry that message to the control center in your brain. Your brain is going to say, yep, you're too hot. We need to cool the body down. So it's going to tell your sweat glands to start activating and start releasing. So in this case, the sweat glands would be the effector, and they're going to release sweat, and that sweat is going to evaporate from your body, and that is going to cool you down back down to 37 degrees Celsius. So that's an example of a negative feedback system. Positive feedback systems are very rare in the body because they actually will push you further away from the set point. And in general, you think you don't want to get pushed away from the set point. You want to be back at your normal levels. Sticking with positive feedback here on the right side, this is an example of positive feedback mechanisms. So you have a baby that is being born. So what's going to happen? And you can start at any point here. Let's say that the head of the baby is pushing against the cervix. So this mom is giving birth here. The head of the baby is pushing against the cervix, which is this little area right here. That's going to cause nerve impulses to fire. They're going to basically receive a signal that that head is pushing against the cervix, and it's going to transmit that signal to the brain. The brain is going to then tell the pituitary gland that it needs to secrete a hormone known as oxytocin. Oxytocin gets carried by the bloodstream back to the uterus. Here, this is the uterus. And that oxytocin is going to stimulate the uterus to contract. Now, when this uterus contracts, where's that baby going to go? Towards the cervix. And so what's going to happen? the head of the baby is going to push harder up against the cervix. And you start this cycle over and over and over again. So you just get this continuous cycle of contractions and increased pressure and more oxytocin, and contractions and increased pressure and more oxytocin, basically until that baby is born. So that is a positive feedback system because it's just getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Over here, this is a generic example of a negative feedback system, and this is the body temperature regulation like I was talking about here. You get too warm, your nerve cells in your skin and brain notice it, carry that message to the brain, your sweat glands activate, that gets you to lose more heat, and it returns your body back to 37 degrees Celsius. So this is just stimulus, that sensor control effector that we talked about in general terms. Okay, so that is supplementary video 1.2 to 1.5. Again, this is the first dual credit video lecture, so if you're having issues with Canvas or with VidGrid or anything like that, please let me know. Let's tackle these problems right now so that further on down the road, things start getting much smoother sailing.